The month of April started with a new strike event featuring King Cold. His leader skill gave 3 key to physical type units. He lowered attack on super attack and had an additional attack debuff in his passive. So yeah, he was a decent utility unit to have. And also the first strike unit to be physical. So now we had a strike unit of every type. 2 weeks later, they had a whole celebration to celebrate the release of the Resurrection F movie. There was a new event where you could get some new free-to-play units related to the movie. There was a police officer killing card, an SR Jacko, and an SR Final Form Frieza. They were not very like anything special as you guessed it, but it was still a pretty cool thing to have like police officer killing in game. And I'll also be pointing out the fact that in Jacko had a 7% chance to stun all enemies. Like sure, it was a rare thing, but a very powerful ability if you were lucky. Obviously they also had to cash out on the hype of the movie and make some money, you know. So they dropped a new banner featuring AGL Blue Goku and Int Golden Frieza. AGL Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan Goku was now officially the new hardest hitting unit in the game, and by far. He was the first unit to have both a supremacy multiplier and a higher attack buff in his passive skill. The only problem is that he struggled with ki, but if you managed to super attack with him, he did an insane amount of damage. He was on top of every Japanese tier list at the time. As for Int Golden Frieza, he was very good, just not as good as Blue Goku. They also dropped probably the 2 rarest card in game right now. 2 Gokus that you could pretty much only obtain at the time via some V-Jump magazine codes. They weren't good by any means, just some cool trophy cards. But you're probably wondering where the hell is Blue Vegeta? And well, they dropped him in a separate banner at the end of the month. He was legit just AGL Blue Goku but with a worse super attack multiplier. Like the first ever Vegeta shaft. And bro, as you know, it only got worse from that point on. The month of May started with 2 new banners, one featuring AGL Kaioken Goku and one featuring Physical Fat Boo. AGL Kaioken Goku was a phenomenal unit at the time. Like he wasn't the best because of Super Saiyan Bardock, but he was now the hardest hidden unit in the game if you were able to super consistently with him, which wasn't as hard since he had 2 very good key links. And for some of you guys who weren't playing before the link level update, key links back then had the ability to be activated twice, meaning that if you had this guy in the middle and that both his partners shared, for example, the Shokin Speed link with him, you would get 4 key instead of 2. As for Physical Fat Boo, well, I couldn't find much information about how good he was at the time, but I would assume that he was pretty decent with his leader skill and healing passive that could proc every single time you were below 30% HP. He was also the last of the 3 main villains of Dragon Ball Z to get a card in game, just like how Kid Buu is now the only main Dragon Ball Z villain who doesn't have an LR. I'm telling you, their intentions were set in stone from the very beginning. 3 days later, they released another Resurrection F movie event that came with a bunch of new awakenings. I think you were pretty much able to awaken every single SR Frieza that was available in the game and that they didn't already have a Dokkan Awakening into Golden Frieza. They all did different things. The 2 AGL Golden Friezas lowered the enemy attack. The Tech Golden Frieza was a strength and tech type key support unit. The 2 Int Golden Friezas were damage dealers, with one of them being an Int type key +3 leader, and the Strength Golden Friezas were enemy debuffers. Oh, and yeah, the former hardest hitting unit in the game got his Dokkan Awakening from this event too, but he didn't get much, just like a little bit of stats and a 10% attack buff in his passive, but it was enough since he was still decent before his awakening. Like, let's not forget that this guy was still the hardest hitting unit like just 2 months ago. A week later, we got another banner that introduced Whis into the game. He was a support type unit and could lower attack on super. This guy could have been a phenomenal support on release if he was a Saiyan unit, but since he pretty much linked with nobody, he just didn't really fit on any team, unfortunately. We also got our first version of Beerus as an SR in the same banner, and damn, for an SR that guy was pretty good. He had a tech type 40% attack leader skill and a 25% start of turn attack buff. Nothing to laugh at. But like Whis, he couldn't really shine because of his link stat and I guess SR stats. 5 days later, we got another banner, this time bringing future Trunks into the game. The unfortunate thing is that this guy was legit just a reskin of Int Super Saiyan Gohan, but with I guess just better links for the time. So yeah, not very good, a waste of a card, especially for a faint favorite like future Trunks. In the following weeks, we got 2 new strike characters, King Vegeta and Piccolo Jr. They honestly both weren't that great. King Vegeta gained 3k when HP was 50% or below, and Piccolo had a 4% chance to stun all enemies, which was great if you were lucky but not very reliable. The month ended with a new banner featuring Tech Majin Vegeta and Strength Evil Boo. Majin Vegeta was honestly pretty underwhelming. His leader skill was subpar, he didn't have a supreme damage multiplier, and his start of turn attack buff was pretty low. But he was Majin Vegeta after all, you know, he was like hype, very hype. And he also was a Saiyan, meaning that he had a decent link set. And he could link pretty well with AGL Kaioken Goku, the new hardest hidden unit in the game. So he wasn't completely worthless. People just wish that, you know, they did more with him since it's Majin Vegeta. Like a very anticipated unit at the time. As for Strength Evil Boo, yeah, he was bad. Like, like he was bad. Subpar leader skill and not that great of a passive. Really, the only thing he had going for him was being Physical Boo best linking partner. But Physical Boo was not something crazy either. So as you guessed it, yeah, just the Boo units just kept taking L's after L's. And you'll see in the following months because it didn't get any better. The month of June started with another strike event, this time featuring SR Mighty Mask. He was a decent strike card that greatly lowered defense, and his passive provided a 30% attack buff when facing multiple enemies. The next day they dropped a filler banner featuring AGL Kaioken Goku, Tech Final Form Frieza, and Strength Super Saiyan Bardock. This banner had so much value since those three guys were each the best at something. AGL Kaioken Goku was the hardest hidden super class unit, Tech Final Form Frieza was the hardest hidden extreme class unit, and Strength Super Saiyan Bardock was the best leader and versatile unit. Bro, just look at that video. Japanese players were sounding like crazy on that banner. But what they didn't know at the time is that this banner was a big bait, because the actual first banner of the month came 4 days later. That banner brought a new Tech Super Saiyan to Goku and a new Strength Super Saiyan Trunks, both from the Android Cell saga. Tech Super Saiyan to Goku was very good at the time. He had a decent link set, a supreme SA multiplier, and he supported Tech and Strength type allies for 2 key. But he shared the same name as AGL Super Saiyan to Goku, who was still a decent card. So you had to choose between one of them. And since they both did different things, one being utility and the other damage, it wasn't actually that bad of a thing since you could choose what you wanted depending on your current needs. But I'm not gonna lie, it probably would have been great if you had the ability to use both of them in the same team. As for Strength Super Trunks, he was nothing special really. Like, he had a very good passive, but the extreme damage multiplier really held him back. If you were a damage dealer unit, you needed to have a supreme damage multiplier, so he didn't hit as hard as people expected him to. But the thing is, people still summon like crazy for him for one simple reason. Can you guess it? Like, doesn't he remind you of someone? Well, yes, he was the closest thing to a playable Broly. Like, look at his card, this is literally just Broly. And if you were just a Dragon Ball fan in general at the time, Broly was like one of the hypest character at the time. Like, he still is to this day, but I don't know, I just feel like he was more hype back then. Nonetheless, 4 days later, we got a new Bojack movie banner introducing AGL Super Saiyan Gohan into the game, as well as Bojack and his goons. He basically was just the AGL variant of the Tech Super Saiyan Goku, and since he shared the same name as Strength Super Saiyan Gohan, it was pretty much the exact same thing as the Super Saiyan Gokus. If you wanted damage, you went with Strength Super Saiyan Gohan, and if you wanted more key, you went with AGL Super Saiyan Gohan. So yeah, overall a pretty good card. As for Strength Full Power Bojack, well, he had an amazing leader skill, 50% attack to Strength type units, and an insane passive, 75% attack when performing a super attack. But like Whis and Beerus, what killed this guy were his links and extreme damage multiplier. Also, he awakened from an SR Bojack in the banner, which was actually a good thing, because it meant that you had a higher chance of pulling multiple copies of this guy and having him with multiple SA levels. But at the same time, since he awakened from medals from the new story event, it meant that if you didn't awaken him in time, you would have to wait a very long time before being able to farm his medals again. Like, there was no keys or portal of memories like back then. There was nothing like that. And if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure that no story event came back yet. So people weren't even sure that story event would eventually come back. But yeah, the new story event also brought a new SR Super Saiyan Gohan. This guy was great for a free to play card. He was cool, he greatly lowered defense on super, had a decent passive, and just an all-around great link set for the time. Golden Warrior, Saiyan Warriors, and Super Saiyan. All pretty common links at the time. Unless you had in Super Saiyan Gohan with some dupes, you were just better off with this guy. Also, I'm not sure if this is true, but apparently there was a bug at the time where you could run Dokkan Awakened and Un-Dokkan Awakened cards that share the same name together. So you could actually run him with in Super Saiyan Gohan. So really there was no reason to not farm him at the time. JP also got a new V-Jump exclusive card that Bane and SR Goku from his fight against Burger and Jace, I think. He was an alright card, I guess, if you were a new player and had no other options. Before the next big banner, they dropped a filler banner introducing Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta into the game. Well, non-Majin Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta. And well, he was not great. Like, not great at all, which was understandable for a filler banner. His leader skill was subpar, he had an extreme damage multiplier, and his passive skill was alright, I guess. But don't worry, because this guy actually became insane like 4 years later with his easy. So the next big banner at the end of the month introduced Super Saiyan True Goku and Super Buu into the game. Strength Super Saiyan True Goku, as expected, was pretty much the new best unit in the game. He shared the same type and leader skill as Strength Super Saiyan Bardock, had a supreme damage multiplier, and a 70% attack buff as his passive, and a very good link set for the time. This guy was pretty much just a direct upgrade from Super Saiyan Bardock, who was seen by many as the best unit in the game at the time. Like, sure, Bardock could support, but what was the point of that if you could just do a lot more damage with a single card, like Super Saiyan 3 Goku? Who cares about what the other cards in the rotation are doing, like, bro. As for Tech Super Buu, well, he wasn't Super Saiyan 3 Goku, but he was actually not bad. He had a great leader skill and could stun on super attack. But what really made this guy stand out is that he had a better version of SR Strength Cell passive, where he could heal for 25% of the damage he did. It wasn't game breaking or anything by any means, since he still didn't link with anyone except the 2 other Buu units we had in game, but with them you could cook a pretty fun team with tons of healing. The celebration also introduced a new strike unit. Well, Paikuhan, or however you spell it. Like, he was an alright floater because of his support, but that's pretty much it. He had like no super attack effect and his link set was complete garbage. Also, it's very hard to pinpoint where this happened, but I think it's around this time that Dokkan had an update that allowed same name characters to raise the super attack of other cards, which was game changing at the time. Anyways guys, this is the end of the video. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Additionally, if you have some bucks to spare and wish to support the channel financially, you might consider becoming a member. You will receive some cool icons next to your name and early access to new videos as soon as I finish them. I appreciate all of your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.